My name is Jon Kiper, and I'm running for governor of New Hampshire because a bit before the pandemic, I was elected to the Newmarket Town Council. And one thing about Newmarket is our taxes are fairly high, and we do not have what I would consider excessive services. We have to pay for our town trash bags. Our school is modest. Our police force, our teachers, our firefighters, all of their pay scale is sort of below the average in our state. And I just really wondered why our taxes were so high. And as I got into municipal government, I learned that all of our departments, water treatment plant, the fire department, the police department, they were operating with less people and less finances than is recommended by the Municipal Association of the state. And I really did not understand why it was that our taxes were so high. And as I dug into it, I learned that many of the towns in New Hampshire, many of the richest towns, pay the least amount of property taxes because of the way that we finance our public education system. And in Newmarket, we pay very high taxes because of the way that the school is funded. 60% of the cost of our local public education is paid for by the local taxpayer. Now, what this means is that you have a situation in which planning boards are literally afraid of children. What I mean by that is they're afraid that if they build houses or allow houses to be built for young families or for young workforce who might have children, that those children will cause their local taxes to go up. A couple of years ago, I heard on NHPR, they were doing a story about local property taxes and the impacts of those. And a woman called up and she said, I'm in my 60s, and if it was up to me, we wouldn't let anyone move to our town who's younger than 55 because they're going to bring their children with them, and their children are going to cause our taxes to go up. And I thought, what a sad, sad way to run a state. What a really stupid way to fund education where it disincentivizes children from participating in society or from moving into a town. And what you end up with this system is, first, you have a regressive tax system in which some of the richest towns pay the least amount of money and some of the poorest towns pay the highest. But also, you end up having to choose between old folks who just want to stay in their homes and young children who just deserve a good education. And this is a choice we should not have to make. So as governor, I propose lowering the amount of money that local towns are paying towards the education so that we're paying maybe 15 or 20% of the cost versus currently we're paying about 60% of that total cost, and having the state pick up the balance. Because here's the thing about education. It does not stay in the town or the city. We employ or we train people and educate them, and then they are then employed in towns like Newington, at Best Buy, or in Newcastle, at the Wentworth by the Sea. So we are paying for these children and for these adults to be educated who then leave and go work in other towns, and those towns and cities benefit from our tax money. Because fundamentally, if we want our economy to grow, we need an educated population. And not only that, but we need young people entering the workforce. And our current system disincentivizes towns and cities from building houses for families, okay? And right now, because of this system, we are the second oldest state in the country. And if you look at our legislature, who is not paid, 70 to 80% of them are retired. And as a result of this, they are perpetuating a system which is not sustainable. And people need to understand how bad it is, because you just cannot have a state that is majority retired people. It will not work. Why will it not work? Because you need young people working as LNAs and nurses and EMTs and firefighters who are going to care for this aging population. And the problem is those people do not have affordable houses. So we need to fix the way we pay for education so that we can build houses that are affordable for our young people, okay? There's no getting around this. There is no world in which the economy grows and the only people that move here are over the age of 60. It will not happen. It's mathematically impossible. Here's the thing. In your lifetime, you will spend the most money at the period of your time in which you are having children, because those children need new clothes and new toys. And we live in a consumer-driven economy, which requires that we have young people having children to boost the economy and keep the economy going. And what's happening now is we're entering into an inflationary cycle. I own a small restaurant, and every year my employees' rent goes up. That means I have to pay them more. That means I have to charge you more for a cheeseburger, okay? And I was thinking about this. I was like, if I have to charge people more, then they have to go ask for raises, then their bosses have to charge more. How do we get out of this inflationary cycle? And the only way is more affordable housing. We have to have more housing. And I think the only way to do that is to fix the way we fund education. Now, I should tell you, there's a couple of lawsuits working through the judicial system right now that are trying to address this disparity in the way that we pay for school. And I'm hoping that they will resolve this, maybe even before I'm governor. But ultimately, the legislature has known for 30 years that the way that we fund education and the amount that the state provides is not adequate. And they have to deal with it. Okay, they cannot deal with it. It is causing systemic problems in our state. And I'm running for governor out of pure survival because I want to stay in this state, but if I can't hire anybody, I have to leave. I have to take my business and go somewhere else. Because every year I see people my age and younger move. They move up north or they move out of the state and they are replaced by people who are retired. And that simply cannot continue to happen. New Hampshire cannot become a retirement community for Massachusetts. We cannot allow this to happen. And every politician from the local to the state level seems to not understand this basic concept of demographics. It's very simple, people. Since the beginning of time, every civilization has been a pyramid scheme, okay? You need more people on the bottom, younger people supporting the older people on top. And right now, we are going into a period of where our pyramid is upside down. And we have too many old people. And here is what's going to happen, and it is already happening around the state. Because there are not enough LNAs and not enough nurses, older people in this state are not getting the care that they need. And it's only going to get worse and worse and worse until we provide more housing for the LNAs and the nurses and the staff to run these retirement homes. If you're planning on retiring in the next 10 or 20 years, think about this. If the retirement home has to pay nurses more or LNAs more because their cost of living is going up through rents going up, your retirement costs are going to go up. So if you've planned a set amount of money, it will not be enough without more housing. It will not be enough. Inflation is going to eat up your retirement money. And the only way to stop that is to build more houses. There is no other way. You know, it's interesting. One of the other people who's running for governor, the mayor of Manchester, recently, they have a bit of a homeless problem. I'm sure you've heard of this. And she hired a nonprofit, that was going to come in and analyze the housing problem, analyze the homeless problem, and see, what exactly are the roots to homelessness? What's the cause of homelessness in Manchester? And, I read this and I sort of gave a chuckle because I thought, I can tell you why there's homeless people in Manchester, and I don't need a fancy degree or a fancy study to figure that out. There aren't enough houses. That's why there's homeless people. There isn't enough affordable houses. And the idea that it's their fault because they're drug addicts or alcoholics is not true. Yes, there are some people who are suffering mental illness and they need treatment, and there's some people that have addiction issues, but the bottom line is They need houses, okay? And if we continue with this current system of funding education, like I've said, planning boards will not allow those houses to be built because their fear of driving up taxes is so high. If you don't believe me, I dare you to go to your next planning board meeting in your town, your city. Go to the meeting. At the beginning, there's a public comment period. I want you to get up to the microphone and say, hi, I'd like to see 20 to 30 houses built that are about 1,200 square foot, 2 to 3 bedrooms, under 300,000 on small lots so that they're affordable. Your planning board will freak out. They will cry. They will say, no, we can't have kids in our town. Kids are gonna cause our taxes to go up through the roof. That is an insane way to run a state. It is a terrible idea, okay? And the fact that no one is talking about how bad this is of a way to run a state is why I am running, because I'm shouting this at the rooftops. Look at the systemic issues. Look at the systemic issues and what it is causing, okay? So this is my 4-point plan. We need to change the way we pay for education, okay? We need to convince planning boards that we need starter homes and we need workforce housing, okay? The third thing, we need a constitutional amendment to pay our legislature. Because right now, like I said, the majority of them are retired or rich, okay? And because they do not get paid, working class people, middle class people, single moms, carpenters, bartenders cannot afford to go to Concord and represent us. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is called taxation without representation. Everyone should be able to run who has good ideas as a state rep. And the only way that happens is if they get paid. It doesn't have to be a lot of money. In Maine, they pay $20,000. We have 400 legislators. That would be $8 million. A drop in the bucket when you look at our $13 billion budget. Okay, we have to pay the legislature. I understand that there was an idea at the beginning that it made sense to just pay them $100 a year. That was hundreds of years ago. It doesn't work anymore, and the outcomes that are produced are that the rich and the retired that are elected are only looking after themselves. It's a natural human instinct. We tend to look after ourselves, okay? Most of the people in the legislature and most of the people running for governor, if not all the people running for governor currently and in the past 8 years, do not understand the housing problem because they are not amongst those who have housing problems. These are rich people. They don't have friends who can't afford their rent. They don't have friends who can't find houses. They do not own businesses in which they cannot find employees. If they did, they would understand the need for more workforce housing. And I am begging you, let's stop electing rich lawyers and lobbyist type people, okay, who live in mansions and do not represent us, the working class and the middle class, okay? I am of the people, I am for the people. I have worked, okay? I have humped shingles up a roof, I have dug holes, I have scrubbed dishes for most or entire of my life, okay, to get by. I understand how hard it is. And I'll tell you a simple fact. We don't have to pay nurses or teachers or restaurant workers more if we can just bring the cost of living down. If we had more affordable housing and your average mortgage prices going down, your rent's going down, that is a raise in itself, okay? So I want you to start thinking about this, because every time you turn on the news and you hear about a hospital closing down because if you read, it's because they couldn't afford the nurses, because the nurses couldn't afford the houses. Or if your school budget's going up, it's because the teachers cannot afford to live around there, okay? There was a recent story about a firefighter in Portsmouth who was living in an RV. And the city wanted to ban people from living in RVs, and the chief of the fire department said, hey, one of my guys is one of those people living in an RV. We cannot have a town or a city where the fire department cannot afford to live, where the fire department does not have housing, or where the police department does not have housing. A great thing about Newmarket is that our chief of police lives right downtown. A number of our police officers live right in town, but that is getting harder and harder for them to do as the price of rent and houses goes up, okay? This is so important for people to understand. We cannot have cities or towns where only rich people are allowed to live. It will not work. You will not have cafes. Your fire department and police will not have employees. Your nurses and your EMTs will just not be there because they cannot afford it. So, housing, education, pay the legislature. The fourth thing that I will do as governor is sue the petroleum companies for causing climate change. And the fact is, companies like ExxonMobil, they had their own climate scientists telling them as early as 1977 that global warming was going to happen. They had a choice then. They could have rang the alarm bells and said, folks, we need to do this a different way because we are going to ruin the earth. They chose greed instead. And frankly, this was the hottest summer I can remember. My electric bills were through the roof. Our local cafe had to close early because it was so hot in there, the fridges were getting too hot. The economic ramifications of climate change on our coastlines, on flooding, on our farms are going to be astronomical. And to not hold petroleum companies liable for this, in a legal sense, would be so stupid. It would be stupid. And frankly, there's other cities and other towns that are suing these companies, and we should join their lawsuits and get back what's ours, okay? They should be punished for what they've done.